Well, hi, everyone. I'm Michael Benner, and this is Wisdom of the Soul, presented by the Ageless Wisdom Mystery School. We're here live, a Zoom class, every Sunday morning, 11 a.m. California time, Pacific time. And if you're not able to be with us in the flesh, then you can watch the full video on YouTube. Search Ageless Wisdom Mystery School. An edited version without the meditation and the Q&A is available as an audio podcast on all players. Search Ageless Wisdom Mystery School. Also, my website is michaelbenner.com. There's lots of cool information there. My podcast streams there. There's a reading list and other resources, an outline of the Saturday Salon is there, and more importantly, the private work. The Saturday Salon's filled up, and boy, we've had 3 sessions, and that's going really well. If you're interested in that, I do have a waiting list for a second salon, so email me about that at awmysteryschool. No, that's not it. awmysteryschool@gmail.com for Ageless Wisdom. awmysteryschool@gmail.com, and say you're interested in that. And get the newsletter. That's the easiest way to stay up to speed. You get the link to this class and show notes and find out about the private work and the one-on-one counseling that I do. The intake is free and you're under no obligation to continue, so there's no risk in checking it out. I have wonderful relationships with some people that I've met through just a few private sessions. Sometimes it just takes a few. So that's michaelbenner.com. That's my primary website. I appreciate you being here. Thanks for stopping by. Today we're going to talk about the illusion of time and the relationship of time and space, and the idea that there is something outside of time and space. Now, this is a huge field, and so I have a lot to say about it, and hopefully you will too when we come to the Q&A. So make a few mental notes or maybe even some physical notes as we go through the class, because I so value your participation. And I know it may be uncomfortable for some of you to have the limelight drawn your way by risking, asking a question. But it's not about you. It's about how everyone benefits from the Q&A. So I hope you'll help us and think of it as supporting the larger group by having a question or even a comment as we move into the last 1/3 of the class today. I'm going to begin before the opening meditation with a little bit of hard science, and then we'll move on to the more esoteric concepts of time and why our belief systems around time hinder us. That's basically why I'm doing the class today, is that we're constrained by Maya, by the illusion of separation in space, the idea that there's somebody here that's not you, of the other, of opposition and conflict, when in fact there's only one thing at work. But there's also separation in time. We break time into events, and we think in terms of cause and effect. And I'm going to talk about that, but first I want to explain a little bit about the space-time continuum, just touch on it briefly, and then we'll go into our opening meditation. What I'm about to tell you, you may not understand, but you will be able to remember. Sometimes we believe we need to understand something in order to remember it, and that's not true. What I'm about to tell you, you can remember easily without understanding it. And by working in that fashion, remembering it, even if you don't understand it, then you can work on it later and do a little Google search or close your eyes and relax and meditate on the concept, as Einstein did when he figured this out. And it really starts with the whole idea of what gravity is and how gravity works. Space is a thing in the physical universe, obviously, that is akin to a fabric. It is not just empty space. It is a grid. I wonder how many of us have seen the second Star Trek television series with Picard. Make it so. Not the Kirk and Spock, that was number one, but the one with Picard and Deanna Troi, and she had the killer job. That's the job I always wanted. I wants to be the counselor to the CEO. Um, they had this really cool thing called the holodeck, which you could program to create an artificial holographic reality, and you could you could program it to look like anything, any place, um, and any situation, and then you could go inside the holodeck and party. Well, every time they ended the program, all you would see is a grid. There was just a grid in 3 dimensions. And that's very much the way space exists. So that what gravity is about is the way a mass, let's think of a planet, but it even works with molecules and electrons on that level. Gravity is a force at all levels. And if you think of, think of 4 people, or 2 people at least, maybe 4 people, holding a bed sheet tight, and you roll a heavy ball, like a bowling ball, out into the middle of that bed sheet. You can imagine the way that ball would cause that bed sheet to sink. And the fabric of space, the fabric of the bed sheet, is warped by the presence of that mass, in this case, the bowling ball. Well, if I take a smaller ball, like a baseball or even a marble, and roll it out onto that fabric, where's it going to go? Well, it's going to go downhill, so to speak. It's the gravitational attraction is really a function. Even if you spin it around and it goes around and around and around, that orbit is maintained by a balance of forces, a centrifugal force causing it to go out and the gravity pulling it toward the center. Well, that's how gravity works. That's how the moon spins around the Earth, and the moon and the Earth and the other planets in our solar system rotate around the sun. It's a balance between centrifugal force and gravitational attraction. Well, we have 3 dimensions of space: height, width, and depth. The 4th dimension is time. And I'd just like to touch on this because I think it's fascinating. And again, you can remember this even if you don't understand it, and then cogitate on it later. The way to best understand the relationship of time to space, and the reason that you hear about a time-space continuum, is that we're moving through both. In terms of our understanding of being physical bodies, consciousness, spirit in a physical body, in a physical universe, there is time and there is space. So imagine a car sitting in the driveway. That car is motionless It is not moving through space, but it is moving through time, right? Even if it's turned off, the engine is not running, it's not idling, it's not moving, it's not going anyplace, it's not moving in space, but it is moving through time. Then you start up the car and you start to drive down the road. The faster you go through space, the slower time goes. This is called time dilation. And this is not a theory. This is demonstrable. It is provable. There are those NASA astronauts that are twins. One is a senator from Arizona. Kellys, I think, is their names. And one went into space and was in the International Space Station for a long time, 6 or 9 months, I think. Well, when he came back to Earth, he was a little bit younger than he was when he left. Or let me say that more precisely, a little younger than he would have been if he had not left. And so if he was the younger of the two twins, he's a little bit younger than the twin that stayed on Earth as a result of going through space so rapidly at tens of thousands of miles an hour. But the phenomena doesn't really mean much until you get really, really fast. So at the speed of light, consequently, to jump ahead, at the speed of light, time stops. Now, I said you probably wouldn't understand that. That's hard to get your head around, but a way of thinking about it, and to show you the relative nature of not only space but time. Consider if you could jump on the reflected light, or a beam of light that is reflected off a clock just as it strikes 12. Imagine Big Ben, and bong, just as it hits 12 noon, you could saddle up that reflected light beam and ride it onto space at the speed of light. It's 186,000 miles per second. Every time you look down, that light's going to say 12 o'clock. So at the speed of light, time stands still. It makes perfect sense. So the faster you go through space, the slower time goes. I mention this because it's important that we begin to think of time as relative, as a variable. It even has a relationship to consciousness. It's a little bit different. It's inversely proportional to space, and that the faster you go through space, the slower time goes, and the slower you move into space, the faster time goes. But it's directly proportional in terms of consciousness. If you want time to speed up, get busy. Feed your brain lots of stimulus and lots of information. Time flies, right? Tempus fugit. If you want to slow time down, do nothing. That's what boredom is, right? You're not doing anything, and time goes so slow. You know the saying, a watched pot never boils, right? Put some water on to boil and get busy doing other things, and it'll be boiling before you know it. Put water on to boil and sit in a chair and watch it and wait for it to boil. It'll take forever. Time is so relative. I remember years and years ago when we got a microwave, the first time I ever owned a microwave, it was like, what? Baked potato in 6 minutes? Instead of an hour in the oven, 6 minutes I can bake a potato, and I was gobsmacked. I thought, this is absolutely amazing. But I didn't have that microwave for more than a couple of months before I'm standing there impatiently tapping my foot, going, come on, what's taking so what's taking so long, right? So we say things like, I don't have enough time. I'm running out of time. I don't have time to meditate. I'm too busy. And we define time as the distance between events. I'd like to disabuse you of that belief today. And let's take another look at time. Perhaps time is not a series of events, and perhaps time is not separated or separatable. I mean, obviously we do this, but maybe it's not accurate any more than to separate space. Perhaps separation in both senses, time and space, is an illusion that constrains us. And if we better understand Maya, that time and space are illusions, and there is no separation, you can set yourself free. All right? That's the whole point of having the discussion, to set yourself free, to not be constrained by these illusions that there's something here or someone here that is not part of one whole thing. Because that's the source of all of our fear. Separation, things unknown, uncertainty, that's all fear. And where does negativity come from? Fear. Where does evil come from? Fear. Where does ignorance come from? Fear. Which promotes more ignorance and more fear, and more ignorance and more fear. They feed each other. A vicious cycle. So looking at time and space is a way of getting out of that. So let's do a little meditation, and when we'll come back to this idea and explore it a little more deeply. So close your eyes and relax. Get comfortable in your furniture, your meditation pillow, the floor, wherever you happen to be. Close your eyes. Sit up straight. Not rigid, but well balanced, nicely relaxed. And begin to sense and create a letting go feeling in your body. Muscles relaxing, muscles unwinding. Feel the letting go in your body. This is important in meditation, and many meditators pay little or no attention, and they carry muscular tension unconsciously throughout the meditation and don't really get any benefits or results. Take a series of slow, deep breaths as you relax, and get a sense of pulling in power and strength as you inhale, and then as you exhale, on that side of the cycle, feel the letting go. Inhale ideally through the nose. Exhale through the nose or the mouth. Although it's really preferable, whenever possible, to inhale and exhale through the nose. It oxygenates the blood more effectively, cleans the air. And after 4 or 5 nice, slow, deep breaths, just allow yourself to breathe normally and continue the letting go. Scan your body with your awareness, just like a computer scanner on your desk. Sweep slowly from head to toe and back again, releasing the last of any residual tension. allowing yourself, giving yourself permission to feel safe. And if it ever feels like you're letting go of control, remind yourself this is an illusion. This is a lie we tell ourselves. Tension is not control. Tell yourself, I am in control of the letting go. I choose to feel safe and relaxed and sort of warm and cozy. Think of times in your life when you feel warm and cozy and safe, and bring that to mind. Warm and cozy and safe is happy. Warm and cozy and safe and happy is peaceful. Feel the happiness for no reason, just 'cause. Feel the peace. All from letting go of everything that is not happy and peaceful. Allowing yourself to just breathe normally. Place your attention on the bottom of your nose. And as the observer, not the breather, you've relinquished control of your breathing now. You were the breather when you deliberately inhaled the big breath. Now you're the observer of the body breathing itself. And as you watch your breath, this is an in-breath, this is an out-breath. And you experience the feeling of having completely relinquished control, trusting that your body breathes itself, maintains itself, all by itself. Consider further peace and happiness is not something we attain. It is not an accomplishment, nor a destination. It dwells permanently, everlasting, within you, at the center of your being, available to your awareness when you let go of everything that is not peace and happiness. When you put down the story, when you set aside your fear that you need to defend yourself from something, when you consider that you could take 15 or 20 minutes every morning to start your day with peace and happiness for no reason, other than that's the truth of who you are. If you put down everything else, what remains is an awareness that is peace and happiness, like a pool of water that once had waves, or even little wind waves, or even tiny ripples, but is now as smooth as glass. Feel your emotional disposition as calm, still, tranquil, peaceful, free from unhappiness, which we call happiness. Tell yourself, this is my natural state. This is the truth of who I am. Sitting here, safe and happy, in the eternity of this unfolding moment. Free from the phantasms and hobgoblins of the past, free from the shadows of an unknown future, in the eternity of a moment that unfolds. And it does have rhythm. Now, as an in-breath and an out-breath. Now has its cyclic nature, its vibrations, some fast, some slow, some faster still, others even slower. Wheels within wheels, cycles within cycles, but all of it centered in the perpetual nature of now. Be here now. There is no there. If you go there, it becomes here. Everywhere you go, here we are. And the idea that we don't have enough time, or that we must hurry, becomes absurd. We have eternity. A now with no beginning and no end. With its ebb and its flow, and its coming and its going. And it's rising and it's falling, but it's always now. Be here now. And be free from your story about the past and your fears of an unknown future. Happy and peaceful and free. Safe, calm, and relaxed. And still you remain aware, alert, and responsive. Gently focused into the reality of the moment. Beautiful, extraordinary, magnificent, wondrous moment as it unfolds before you, before your very eyes. Watch it unfold. Every moment spent considering the past, considering the future, is a moment of reality that is lost. You missed it because you were living in the past and hiding from the future. And you missed it. And then you wonder, where did time go? How did I get to be this age? Why do I have such a shallow memory of my existence, of my many, many years? It's like coming home and dropping your keys without paying attention. And the next morning you go to leave and you can't find your keys and you say, gosh, I must have a bad memory. No, you have a wonderful memory. But you weren't paying attention to the keys when you set them down, so there is no memory. There's nothing to recall. How can you remember something you were not aware of? How can you expect to remember something you were not aware of at the time it happened? And so if we spend our lives in the past and the future, unaware of reality, how could we remember it? All we remember are the peak experiences of overwhelming happiness, huge, enormous, big-time happiness, and overwhelming fear and dread and agony and suffering. That's the memory. And we even build identity out of our faded recollection of the past and feel somehow that it drives our future. Some crazy notion that the future is determined by the past. Your future is not determined by the past. You are not a puppet of history. You are a free agent with the opportunity to live in the reality of now. Make that a commitment now. No time like the present. Commit to now. Now. Tell yourself this will be easy to remember. The next time you find yourself lost in thought, realize the extent to which it's a phantasm of the past and or the future, that you've stepped outside of reality and bring yourself back to the freedom of the present moment. And while that may be easy to remember, it is a practice. So be prepared to practice. You'll get little reinforcement from others. Practice. When you walk, think of nothing but walking. Try that. Instead of walking to get somewhere, make every step an experience of the stepping. When you eat, usually it's some sort of social occasion, but when possible, set aside some time to eat alone or in silence so that you can be aware of eating. Taste the flavor. Consider the nutritional value. Bring to mind where this food came from. And all of the contributing elements, the sun, the water, the nutrients from the soil, and how that is a closed system. And you borrow its energy, and you return that energy. Just as every leaf and every flower and every piece of fruit that ever fell from the tree dissolves into the earth and nourishes that same tree. Nothing wasted, nothing lost. Ponder that while you eat. Whatever you do it mindfully in the present. And you'll find the joy and the happiness and the peace that comes with it naturally. Prepare to return to the wide awake state. Form the intention. Feel the furniture supporting you. Remember the room in which you sit. Remember the Zoom class in which you're participating. Take a slow, deep breath, inhaling. Hold as you peak, and as you exhale, open your eyes now, wide awake. Back in the room, eyes open now, wide awake, rested, refreshed, feeling better than before. feeling even better than before, wide awake, alert, and better than before. Good, thank you. Thank you very much. Doesn't time fly? Yeah, we had time for that. We think of time the way we think of a number line with zero in the middle and the negative numbers trailing off to the left and the positive numbers trailing off to the right. And again, now is the zero. As if the past moves into the present and creates the future. And that we live in a cause-effect universe. We're often told we live in a cause-effect universe. And so we break time down into events. In fact, we can define time as the distance between events, right? Well, my birthday last year and my birthday this year, well, that's exactly 1 year apart. That's time. And what is that a correlation to? Oh, well, that's the rotation of the Earth around the sun. Well, that's sort of arbitrary, given that the Earth and the sun and the other planets in the solar system are revolving around the galaxy. But that's a big cycle. We don't think in terms of the, I don't even know. I have a sense that it's several 100,000 years, but it may be much more than that for the galaxy to rotate one rotation. Somewhere in my mind, I'm thinking it's a few 100,000 years, but I'm not sure about that. It's just like space, you leave the Earth and you get in a rocket ship and jet out into space. At what point do you move into outer space? Well, halfway to the moon, you turn around and look back at the Earth floating there like a blue marble against a black backdrop, and you realize, oh, Earth is outer space. But we think of outer space as somewhere else. So silly. And when you're in outer space, which way is up? And you suddenly realize there is no down, no left or right. There's not even a forward or a back. There's no right side up or upside down in space. These are relative notions that we've defined, but then are victims of. We become constrained by these belief systems. So I'd like to argue that our tendency to break time up into a series of events is completely arbitrary and not real. So let's think of an example. World War II. When did World War II begin? Well, you might say the bombing of Pearl Harbor, December 7, 1940. Was it 41? I think so. 42, 41. I wasn't there. I'm not. December 7, 1941, I'm pretty sure. Is that really when it began? Was there no World War? Oh, yeah, there was before that, but we were not involved because there were a lot of American capitalists and industrialists that thought Hitler had a pretty good thing going. He was a good Christian, he was a good capitalist, he hated the commies. Fascism was pretty popular in America. And so Roosevelt was pressured to stay out of that war. In fact, at one point, Roosevelt wanted to supply fighter jets to our allies again, we weren't in the war, so technically they're not our allies. But England, come on, is being bombed. And just like Ukraine now, they asked us for weapons, and Roosevelt said, I can't do it. I can't. The Congress is too conservative. They sort of like this Hitler guy. And so they hatched a scheme. Roosevelt said, I will park a bunch of airplanes for you inside Canada. I will secretly, surreptitiously ship these airplanes across the border into Canada, and you can pick them up there. And you can see the interest in fascism rising again in the United States. So when did World War II begin? Oh, well, when Hitler invaded Poland. No, when Hitler first was elected, he was elected, you know. No, it began when Hitler was born. It began when fascism was born. I mean, it's sort of arbitrary, right? When did World War II? When did it end? Oh, well, they signed some sort of agreement at Malta. I think Stalin and Churchill and Roosevelt signed some accord, and that was the end of the war. Really? Was that the end of the war for the people who lived in Hiroshima or Nagasaki? So even our events are arbitrary in terms of a beginning and an end. And I've got to tell you, in quantum physics and in metaphysics, the whole idea of an event having a beginning and an end is ridiculous. Take life itself. Whether you believe in reincarnation or you have the Abrahamic belief of Christians and Muslims and most Jews, so a lot of Jews aren't clear on on the whole heaven hell thing at all. They just haven't quite made up their minds. There's still this idea of eternity. You're either going to live in heaven forever, you're going to burn in hell forever, or you're going to be reincarnated forever. And yet we argue about when life begins. Well, if life has no ending, how could it have a beginning? That's just purely illogical. It doesn't stand the test of simple logic. If something has no end, it could not have a beginning. Or if it has no beginning, it obviously has no end, right? Say it that way. So dividing time, the whole idea of time existing as a series of events, as if your past determines the present. You're here now because of your past. Really? Are you sure about that? And your future is determined by the past and the present? Are you sure? As if the past and present drives the future? As if the causes of the present and the past create the effect of the future? It's predetermined? Oh, do we believe in predetermination now, or only to some extent? Maybe these events are not separated any more than physical objects or human beings are separated. Perhaps the physical universe of time and space is like the holodeck. It's a hologram. It's an illusion. It's a playground where awareness forgets who it is, so as to slowly discover who and what we really are. You know, enlightenment, the whole idea of enlightenment, and a lot of teachers don't even like the term enlightenment because, again, it suggests an attainment, a level of attainment, or a point at which you arrive at some place, and boing, 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 oh, I get it, I'm enlightened. You know, anybody who says they're enlightened couldn't possibly be enlightened. It's the ego that takes credit for being enlightened. So those who say don't know, and those who know don't say. Enlightenment, if there is an ideal that we approach, and we look at enlightenment as a process, not a destination, revolves around the whole idea of realizing that all separation is a lie, that all separation in space is an illusion. There is no other. There is one verse, a universe, a monoverse. There's one thing. Okay? There is not one breath. You don't just take one breath. You are being breathed. No beginning, no end. This idea of breaking our life into events constrains us. We think, well, I can't do that. Why? Because I've never been able to do that. It doesn't fit into my story. Poor, poor, pitiful me. You don't know what kind of horrible childhood I had and how I'm constrained by my history, limited by my belief system. Well, if you know you're limited by your belief systems and the stories that you tell about yourself, then stop telling that story and give up the idea that the present was created by the past. What if that's not true? Could you be free enough that now is not a function of anything at all that's come before? You understand what I'm saying? I'm really hoping I can get some comment and question about this. Again, the answers aren't what's important. Good questions, that's what's important. Question, question, question. The best answer to a good question is another question. And so it goes. It's not the answers we're looking for, it's ever better questions. Again, the process, the journey, not the destination. This is an unfolding. So enlightenment, if it's anything, it's realizing this process. Enlightenment is a process, not a goal. If it's anything, it's realizing the unity beyond the veil. That separation in space is an illusion, and separation in time is also an illusion. And it can be a very fun illusion. And often not so much. Getting older could be very frightening because, again, we begin to fear the future because we don't know who we are in the present. Does it make sense if you knew who you are now, that there'd be less concern about the past and the future? Do you ever say to yourself as you age, well, I don't feel any older? Well, it's because you're not. Awareness doesn't age. You're not getting old. Your body is aging. Look at me. I didn't always have white hair. You know, my physical body is aging, but my consciousness is not aging. You could say, well, the consciousness is growing. My awareness is expanding. I'll give you that. But isn't everything? You understand the universe is expanding. Even the physical universe is expanding. And by all accounts, it shouldn't be. It ought to be slowing down after the Big Bang. 13.3 billion years ago. Don't you think that after that explosion, things had begun to slow down a little bit? In fact, the universe, not only is it not slowing down, it's accelerating. How could that be? Ask the most brilliant, eminent scientists. They scratch their head, stroke their beards, and go, I don't know. Well, how do you account for the fact that the universe is, the word they use is inflation, not expanding, because it's sort of like a balloon inflates. In other words, every object in the universe is growing apart from every other. There are no two objects coming closer together in the physical universe. Everything is moving away from everything. Not just the edges expanding, everything. So they call it inflation. Where's that energy coming from? I don't know. Yeah, but you're an eminent physicist. Yeah, so we're still working on that. Well, do you have a working theory? Oh, yeah, sure, we got a theory. We call it dark energy. What is dark energy? I don't know. Well, if you have dark energy, do you have dark matter? Oh, yeah, we got that too. What is that? We don't know. Wait a minute. You're postulating the inflation, the expansion, not just expanding, but accelerating expansion or inflation of the universe faster and faster and faster, based on the existence of energy and matter that is invisible. You can't see it, you can't hear it, you can't touch it, taste it, feel it. It's invisible. The only reason you know it's there is that it's part of the gravitational field. And it's what? 92% of the universe? You mean only what we see in the universe with our eyes, with our telescopes, is only 8%? The visible universe is only 8% of the mass? Yep. Yep. And then I want to touch on this before we go to the Q&A. In quantum physics, there are many there are many remarkable aspects of quantum physics. Chief among them, however, is entanglement, and this is the relationship of particles at a distance. Particles, they could be electrons, subatomic particles, they could be photons, little light packets. Light does stand between matter and energy, it's both, but in fact, all matter is ultimately energy. It's just more apparent with light, little photon packets that have a relationship. Let's say two electrons are in the same star when it explodes, and these electrons go blasting out into space. And a million years later, they're 500,000 light years apart. When they are entangled, what that means is they have a relationship with each other that continues despite the distance in space, such that when one particle is acted upon by an external force, the other particle at a distance responds, no matter how great that distance, and it responds immediately, faster than the speed of light, infinitely faster than the speed of light, immediately responds. And that's called entanglement. How could that be? The only way it can be is if the relationship, the entanglement of those particles at a distance, exists outside of time and space. So there is an outside of time and space. And I'd have you consider that it's timeless, it's an eternal now, and in terms of our identity, it is consciousness. It is awareness. Without awareness, nothing exists. Right? If you're unaware of it, it didn't happen. You could argue, oh, it happened, but I wasn't aware of it. Well, as far as you go, you know, which you are you talking about? It did happen, but were you aware of it? You see, quantum physics says the moon only appears to be solid when you look at it. When you turn away, relatively, it's not solid, it's just energy. The Buddha says the finger pointing at the moon is not the moon. What you don't see the moon, you see light reflected off the moon. And you say, oh, that's the moon. No, that's light reflected off the moon. If there's a lunar eclipse, you don't see them. Well, you see it a little bit, but you know what I mean. If there's no light reflecting off it, you don't see it. Go into a dark room, you don't see anything until the light comes on. We assemble reality in our head. It's all between the ears and behind the forehead. All of your happiness, all of your sadness is compiled in your mind. How free can we be when we give up not just the idea of separation in space, in the sense that there's another here that's out to get us, and then give up the idea of separate events. Of course you have enough time. You have eternity. There's always enough time. Stop saying that. It's a matter of priorities. You think you can get away with saying, well, I don't have time to meditate, or I don't have time to do my hobbies, or I don't have time to spend with my spouse. You're lying. You're lying to yourself as well as to others. It's a matter of priorities. You're just saying, it's not a priority for me. I have higher priorities. If I have no time to play my guitar, if I have no time to pursue my photography, if I have no time to organize my JPEGs on my computer and label them properly, which is the case, it's just that I have more important things to do. It's. I shouldn't say I don't have enough time. I should say it's not a high enough priority for me. I have other things that I'd much rather be doing. This class, my Saturday Salam, my private clients, and quality time with my wife. That's my highest priority. All right, let's open it up to Q&A and talk about the illusion of time and space, for that matter, the relative nature of what we call reality and how it constrains us and confuses us. And again, I'm looking for great questions and comments too. So you can just use that reaction tab in the bottom of the Zoom window to raise your hand, or send a little chat note directed to Melinda. She is our co-host again today. Melinda will call upon you and just say, I've got a question, or I got a comment, or maybe summarize it into a single sentence so that you can help organize your thoughts, and then we'll, once called upon, go to you and see if we can engender some conversation here in the last 25 minutes of the show. Melinda?
Well, I know somebody's about to say something.
Takes them a minute, huh?
I get a headache thinking about where the universe ends. Don't tell me it doesn't. It's just my mind saying, where does it go and what's after? Maybe a better headache would be, what's after it?
Nothing.
Somebody does have a comment, I think. Let me go see here. Uh, TS, I don't know if that's right. Did you want to comment or did you want me to read it? I'll read it and then she can jump here. She can jump in. I remember meeting you in person 35 years ago in Hawaiian Gardens, California, or near there. Glad to find you're still going strong. I don't know if they want to add to that.
Oh, well, she's presuming I'm strong, but I am still going. Hawaiian Gardens, huh? I wonder what event that was. See, I do believe in events. I just don't think they have beginnings or ends. Yes, I do what I do because I love to do it. So take my radio away, take my headphones away. Boy, and they did take radio away. Boy, does radio suck. You know, they're taking it out of cars now. Increasingly, new cars do not have radios in them. And the right-wing radio guys are freaking out and organizing and trying to force the car makers to keep their AM radios in there, but nobody's listening. Surely there are some comments or questions about this.
I'm gonna throw this out there till anybody else jumps in. Where did you get the reference that Hitler was a Christian? I can't confirm that.
Oh, he talks about doing God's work. That
I can't confirm that with I can't confirm that with what I've looked at. I should say with my research can't confirm that.
Oh yeah, he was very much motivated by whether he was a Catholic or not. I don't know, but he was some
It's
sort of
about
Christian.
Christianity in some quotes too, Michael. I just wanted to throw that out there. He seems disparate and he seems to evade the issue, but I'm not an expert on all things.
No, he said he was doing God's work.
But that could be anything. I mean, Christianity implies,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Rick has something to say when you're done.
I can't give you chapter and verse on that. The Catholic Church, of course, did defend him and did nothing to call out the concentration camps or protect the Jews.
That's complicated too.
Of course, it's complicated.
I mean, they I think they did evolve in all fairness to them, which I'm really trying to see, but maybe go back into it and come back at it because it's a fascinating topic. And I think it's more nuanced. What I'm reading is he deliberately avoided, but he did damn Christians and Jews, especially Jews, but Christians too got in the mix too. So I don't know where he stood, but I don't think it was real clear to historians. Well, Rick does it whenever you want to go to him.
To put it back in context, my only point was he was very popular in America. Rachel Maddow's last podcast, I forget the name of it, talks about the fascist influence in Congress during World War II and the committees of fascists, just like the Freedom Caucus now and the MAGA cult. This whole idea of what we need is a good hierarchy. We need a strong man. And so you had Hitler in Germany and Mussolini in Italy and Hirohito in Japan. And we're seeing the same thing happen now with the popularity of Trump. Trump's base doesn't like him in spite of the fact or despite the fact that he's a criminal. The fact that he's a criminal is what they love about him. They knew he was an admitted sexual predator before they elected him. And that he had defrauded people with the Trump University and stolen money from his own charity, and they said, that's my guy. That's before he was elected the first time.
Well, I think he's a cult leader. I think that explains it, in my opinion.
Well, I'm talking about the appeal of fascism.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
appeal.
I agree. I think it's connected though somehow. I don't want to interrupt your thought. Just Rick has his hand up and Hanif has something to say. And
Good,
I'll
good. Rick, go ahead.
Thank you both for hosting us as always. And Michael, it's been a while since we spoke a couple of years ago from a MSU connection, and been just watching your work and absolutely fascinated by it. I don't usually talk only because I have so much that I don't know that I sometimes would slow down enough to give other people a chance. But this particular session moved me a lot. I don't know if you recall, I have a nonprofit called Hug the Moment. And I've always, since I've been little, sort of had one foot in the now. Um, and I've always pictured anywhere I could visibly see through the universe, it's now. No matter if you're standing on the moon looking at Mars or you're standing on the sun looking at a different star, it's the same time everywhere, and there isn't time. So that part is not a believing, it's a knowing. And I know science proves that, so I don't have to, but I'm fascinated by it because of the illusion, which I'm going to move into now. I have a situation with a daughter, young daughter, 13, who I co-parent with, not very well. And I'm trying to get help. There's a lot of factors. I'm not going to go, this isn't the space to go into those right now. But while all the process is going, time, I feel, in experience is going away because my daughter is growing. Literally, the time, in some ways, in the experience of it, is being wasted, and you can't get that back. And then I know, years of the locusts have, eaten, will be returned, and all those things that somehow bring it back again. But the one thing that brings it back that you touched on was entanglement, which to me is the most powerful of all because it's palpable to me and I feel that. So this is more of an observation than a comment, but if you can extract possibly from what I'm observing and reflect it back to me with what this feeling of loss and emptiness, in that the years of inexperience with my daughter currently, I mean, it's not happening. It's not happening. It's not happening. It's not happening. And that is the experience. To me, that's not an illusion, but I know it is. So my mind plays tricks on myself, even when my knowing feels bigger than my believing. So that's all I'm going to say right now.
All right, Rick, let me just say, the self-fulfilling nature of consciousness, of the stories we tell ourselves. The law of attraction simply said, that you hold your attention on something and you do tend to manifest that. And people think of that having read The Secret or seen the video or dabbled in Metaphysics 101, or maybe having read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill or something, as well, I need to conjure up with the law of attraction money or a car or a big house or success on the job or whatever. But it's especially true with our emotions and, of course, with our thoughts. And so when we dwell on the loss, the grief, the emptiness of a relationship that could have been or should have been or is less than complete, we manifest that reality. and it becomes cyclic in nature. That creates even more emptiness and more reflection on what am I missing. And that creates even more heartache. And so we get stuck in that story. But we're really holding on. Anytime we find ourselves stuck, we did a whole, last week we did letting go of stuck, or the week before. So anytime we feel stuck, we need to remind ourselves we're holding on. What I would have you consider is a time when you are with your daughter and how fulfilling that moment is, how fulfilling. And let's say it could just be a day or a weekend. I don't know your situation with custody and all, but let's just say an hour that you spend with her. The experience of fulfillment in that hour, the bonding, the love, the relationship, the attempting to comprehend that this is your offspring, that she's, of you and your wife at the time, your partner at the time. That fulfillment cannot be diminished by the past or the future. It's only when she's not available and you long for that you immerse yourself in what you're losing, and therefore, hope this doesn't sound critical, but you're like the source of your own pain in that regard. So I think you have to be real about it. You have to acknowledge the pain. You have to acknowledge the loss. So be real about it. But breathe into it, step into it, move into it, learn from it what you can, and let it go. And maybe it can lead to an improved relationship with, I guess it's her mother you must be dealing with, right? And
in the entanglement part of your presentation is what keeps me grounded and rooted, because that's palpable and I feel it.
yeah.
And that, I guess, is what I wanted to glean from this, that is so real. And to me, that was at times an illusion, because I didn't necessarily believe that was. But I've seen experiences when I am in that kind of space where that entanglement will do something and it'll trigger her to reach out or something, it's fascinating. And
You can also, let me interrupt, you can also take that love, that longing, that bond. Love is not a function of the presence of an individual. It can be the longing also. That's part of love. Love is magnetic in that way. And you can expand that to include others who are not your daughter, other children, other senior citizens that you have compassion for, other animals, the 40,000 children that die of starvation unnecessarily in this world every single day, of malnutrition, while billionaires sail around the world in these enormous yachts. It's absurd, it's obscene. Or that while we spend 3/4 of $1 trillion every year on war, we're 5% of the world, the United States. 5% of the world. We spend 45% of the money spent in the world on war is spent by the United States. It's obscene. And, when we take that 80% of our military budget that goes to project our power overseas, keep the 15 to 20% that's really for defense, and put that 80 or 85% in housing and feeding and training the poor and the disadvantaged, then we'll begin to form a more perfect union. So expand that love. Don't just take that love you have for your daughter and embrace the world, the universe with it.
I receive it. Thanks.
Yeah, good.
Thank you.
And I think Melinda said Hanif had a
He says, can you expand on the quote, future begins today, not tomorrow? Hanif might want to join it.
future begins today. Oh, I put that in the newsletter. That was the saying by Pope John Paul II. Yeah, well, the future begins today. That's all there is today. That's all you've got. I don't know how to expand on that other than that it tends to reinforce everything that we're talking about. Only now is real. Again, the important takeaway from this is that the future is not limited by the past or the present, right? The future exists in your imagination. You cannot see the future. You cannot touch it. You cannot hear it, taste it, or smell it. It does not exist. It is a part of the physical universe. It just isn't there. Similarly, the past. You say, oh, I can see the past. Really, where do you see it? Oh, in my mind's eye. Well, not with these eyes, you don't. Not with your physical eyes. I can bring it up in my mind's eye. Oh, you mean you're dreaming it? No, it's not a dream. It's a real memory. It actually happened. Yeah, but you're still dreaming it. Your memories are your imagination. Your fears and hopes and dreams for the future, as well as your memories of the past, are all imaginary. They're pretend. Have you ever noticed how malleable your memories are? That the story, the fisherman's story about the one who got away was this big, and every time the guy tells the story, the fish gets a little bit bigger, right? The fish that got away grows every time he tells the story. Or if you have somebody in the family that you know well for many years, you've noticed how their stories morph, their stories change. And I never fully understood that until Doreen interviewed Gore Vidal a few years ago, just before his passing on KPFK. And he told Doreen, he said, you know, every time you remember something, you're not remembering the original incident or event or circumstance. You're remembering the last time you remembered it. And I thought, oh, of course. Why did I never think of that before? That makes perfect sense. So it's a leapfrogging. My memory of college, let's say arbitrarily, I remember college. Rick just talked about him and I both going to MSU. And that's Michigan State, by the way, not Montana or Mississippi. The MSU. My recollection of going to Michigan State is based more on the last time I thought about being there than my original memory of being there, which of course is a collection of scattered events based on the emotional impact. What we remember are the highs and the lows, and anything that impacted us strongly, positively or negatively, is more likely to be remembered. But every time you recall something, you're remembering the last time you remembered it, not the original time. It's a complete phantasm. There's nothing real about it. And if you tell a story, that becomes your story. You're the storyteller. You can tell a different story. You can include in the story what you've learned since then and how you're better as a result of this realization and this understanding. Incorporate that into the story. But no, we seem to find some benefit in dragging with us all the pain and all the suffering and making sure, maybe I'm overstating this, making sure everybody around us knows how horrible our past was, and that explains who we are today. That That song, Poor, Poor, Pitiful Me. I often think of that tune. What what benefit, what pleasure do we get from self-pity? Why do we do that to ourselves? Why do we wallow in our pain? Why do we seem to relish it? Why do we cling to those stories as if they're excuses or reasons for what's happening? Your present is not determined by the past. If it is, it's because you chose it. If it doesn't seem like you chose it, it's because if you refuse to choose, then that's your choice. If you refuse to choose, you've chosen to refuse to choose. But you could let go of it. That's what therapy is about, is understanding it well enough to stop dragging it, dragging it around into the present, as if the past drives the present, and your present and your future is a function of the past. That's horribly limiting. It's not true. Cut those strings. Cut those strings. Be free. Anybody else, Mindy?
Yeah, TS had Darren has their hand up, but TS had a comment that I don't understand how the law of entropy relates to an ever expanding inflation of space, and neither do I.
Well, quickly, the law of entropy, and then I'll go to Darren. The law of entropy is about energy winding down, but it's a little bit of an illusion because there's also the conservation of mass and energy. You really cannot destroy nor create energy, but it does degrade. Entropy simply says energy degrades to heat, that it changes states. So the light becomes heat. The higher frequencies, ultraviolet, gamma radiation, X radiation, atomic radiation, the higher end of visible light, even the lower end reds, all degrade slowly down into heat. But the amount of energy is constant. You don't gain or lose energy. So that is tricky. I'll acknowledge that. But there also is a phenomena, mostly in mysticism, metaphysics, quantum physics, of consciousness creating order out of chaos, which would be the other direction. While energy is degrading to heat, consciousness is lifting energy into awareness and a whole new reality. So order comes out of chaos as a function of consciousness. I've always liked that concept. That's as much as I'll say about that. And then Darren, you want to unmute? Come on.
Yeah, can you hear me, Michael?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
Good. I apologize for my. I'm not trying to be an anonymous caller here. It's something about the fluorescent light in my office, but I bumped into you 40 some odd years ago when I was just out of school, moved out to Los Angeles, and used to listen to you on KLOS almost every night in the middle of the night. I'd come to work and my boss says, "Why are you so tired?" And I said, "Because I listening to Benner every night at like 2 a.m. Those are great days." And I also reviewed your Fearless Intelligence book a few years ago. And
Thank you.
So I've always got your emails, and but on the time and space continuum, today is I'm going to put a little mark there on the number line because I finally made it to one of your sessions. Usually Sundays are church and keeping my lawn mowed or driveway shoveled out, and I never have any time on Sunday to
Of course
chat with you.
Of course.
Anyways, I got a couple of things for you to react to that I noted down. there's a saying that I think everybody goes by, is that history repeats itself unless we learn from the past. And that could be on a grand scale, or it could be something like I had a dog that I loved, and she only lived to the age of 12, and it broke my heart. And so when anybody says, you ought to get a dog, I immediately say, I'll never put myself through that pain of loss again. So I'm aware of my past, but I don't think it impedes what I feel the future holds. I feel that I am on a journey of life, and I like to feel that I have had an awareness, but I'm continuously learning, which suggests that I am changing, and to I think in a direction to find a I'll call it a divine law of harmony that is continuously trying to calm the ripples in the lake when you throw the pebble into the water. Everything wants to come back to harmony, and harmony is constant and everywhere. A lot of ideas in there, but I think I want to say I believe in the past. I believe in the future. But I can embrace both of those.
What stands out there in that for me is the issue of the dog.
Yeah.
And that's because I've had dogs.
Yeah, I know you have.
And after the first dog, before I got a second dog, and then a third and a fourth, I dealt with that. These animals, especially I favored golden retrievers. Those are big dogs. They usually only live 10 or 12 years.
Yeah, I'm a chocolate lab lover.
Yeah, beautiful animal.
They are wonderful.
Though, if you want a dog for 20 years, you got to get a little poodle or a chihuahua or something.
No, thanks.
They live forever. And then the giant dogs are Great Danes, and
Yeah.
they only live 8 years. So you got to know that going in.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have chosen, again, this is not a criticism of you, just to make you aware.
Sure.
You have chosen not to suffer that heartbreak again, so you're denying yourself the joy of having a dog for 8 or 10 or 12 or 13 years because of wishing to avoid the heartbreak at the end. Some people do that with relationships. I've had many clients over the years who have said very clearly and aloud, he broke my heart, she broke my heart. I'm never going to open myself again to that much love. I'm never going to allow myself to be that vulnerable again. In other words, I'm shutting down my ability to love. I'm going to constrain love to avoid the hurt that goes with losing it. Here's the challenge to you. What if it's impossible to lose love? You can lose the relationship with a person or a pet, and it will break your heart, but you'll survive. And if you put it on a scale and say, given that my heart will be broken, well, maybe I can do it more elegantly. Maybe I can suffer well. Maybe I can accelerate the pain and the suffering, the grief and the loss when that dog inevitably does die. Put that on the scale with the joy and the happiness of throwing the ball and the dog brings it back, of the dog waiting for you when you come home and just being so happy to see you and jumping all over you and maybe bringing you its leash in its mouth and saying, let's go for a walk, Daddy, right?
Right.
If all you have to do is learn to suffer well and know that you'll survive it, then I think that is greatly overshadowed by the enormous joy and happiness of getting another dog. I think it's worth it, whether it's a dog we're talking about or a relationship with a spouse, a partner, or a business venture, or a hobby, right? I really would love to jump out of an airplane and find out what parachuting and skydiving is like, but I'm afraid. All right, then you get to stay on the ground, but then you never know how it feels to jump out of an airplane. What if you risk it?
So you're saying, though, then the past is not an illusion. It's so real that it can guide us to make decisions as we go into the future.
It's real in that the expanded awareness, let's say what you learn from it.
Yes.
Or the expanded awareness, better said, that it generates, the opportunity to see the bigger picture and to be more aware. That lives with you eternally because awareness is who you are. That's the reality of who you are. But the dog itself, or the incident that created the broken heart, or that failure in business, or that time, oh, I tried to ride a bike, but I fell off, so I can't do it. And you just never got back on the bike again. That's an illusion. That's dead. That's not limiting the fact that you could get on the bike anytime you want and learn to ride.
Yeah, I just had my aha moment. Expanded awareness is timeless.
Yes.
And
that's who you are.
The expanded awareness. The awareness is real.
Right. That's what you are. It's the only thing that's real. That's what's called love.
Yes. That's
what love is.
Okay.
All right. Killer. Thank you. Awesome. Okay, we've gone over. My apologies. It looks like most of you stayed with us, so that's good. We're not totally constrained to 90 minutes, and so we're going to leave it at that. Mindy, is there anything outstanding that we need to address? Can we wrap it up?
Wrapped it all up.
Say it again.
Wrapped it all up.
Good. Excellent. Hey, thanks everybody for being here, for participating. Email me anytime you wish by responding to the newsletter, or initiate an email to awmysteryschool@gmail.com. Search for us on the internet, your YouTube, your podcast player, Google search Ageless Wisdom Mystery School. Mahalo, aloha, namaste, salam. Please unmute and say thank you and goodbye to each other.
See you next week.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Melinda. Thank you, everybody. Everybody in the
Thank
path
you
of Hillary.
Thanks,
Everybody in path of Hillary. Stay safe.
That's right.
Bye-bye. Thank you much.
Thank you to everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Think dry, people.
Thanks a lot, Michael.
Thank you, Michael. Think dry, everybody.
Yeah, stay safe out there.
Bye-bye.